For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1701.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1701, a bill to require the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State to monitor efforts by the People's Republic of China to build or buy strategic foreign ports and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Izinga, and the gentleman from New York, Mr. Meeks, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on this measure.
Without objection.
I also ask unanimous consent to introduce into the record exchanges of letters and other committees of referral on this bill.
Without objection.
And I yield myself as much time as I may consume at this point.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of my bill, H.R. 1701, the Strategic Ports Reporting Act, introduced alongside Representatives Rob Whitman, Jake Auchincloss, and Johnny Olszewski, and co-sponsored by a bipartisan group of colleagues. This bill is simple, yet it is very necessary to expose the risks, the threats, and the vulnerabilities presented by overt Chinese control of global ports. Specifically, the Strategic Ports Reporting Act requires the State Department, in coordination with the Defense Department, to develop a global mapping of foreign and domestic ports of strategic importance to the United States due to their capacity of providing military, diplomatic, economic, or resource exploration superiority. In other words, the ports that are most important to the interests of the United States, both domestically and abroad. Additionally, this bill requires a study analyzing the activities and plans of the PRC to expand its web of control over global strategic ports while recognizing the U.S. national security and economic implications for such ownership. China's malign influence abroad continues to reach new corners of the global economy. Emerging from the Belt and Road Initiative, Chinese President Xi Jinping's companion initiative, known as the Maritime Silk Road, ratifies a dominating stake in various countries by making critical investment in their strategic ports, some of which exist right here, even in the United States. Something that should resonate with all of our constituencies, as we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic, is that vulnerabilities in supply chains have a significant real-world effect on our supply, on pricing, and access to essential goods. Moreover, the likelihood of the PRC leveraging its ports infrastructure to exert economic leverage in the future remains a significant challenge to the United States and our allies. While many of these investments in port projects are portrayed as commercial relationships, the PRC's global reach is cause for concern, given that many of these ports pose significant dual-use military risks. The fact remains that Chinese investments in strategic ports offer the CCP a launch pad to engage in a campaign of modern-day espionage. Now let's look at a couple of examples, Mr. Speaker. In the Western Hemisphere, the PRC opened its crown jewel, a gateway connecting South America to Asia in Chancay, Peru. This multi-billion-dollar deep-water megaport is owned by a Chinese state-owned entity, COSCO Shipping, C-O-S-C-O, COSCO Shipping, which has ties to the People's Liberation Army. Additionally, Chinese-tied entities manage ports at both ends of the Panama Canal. Here, the CCP coordinates private companies in pursuit of its communist agendas and wields a power to garner more political influence in a volatile region. I commend President Trump and his administration for its leadership and persistence to work with the Panamanians and BlackRock to change this reality. In the United States, 2 Chinese-owned entities, COSCO Shipping and China Merchant Group, a major participant and proponent in China BRI, control significant portions of the port of Long Beach, Seattle, Los Angeles, Houston, and Miami. The opportunity we create exposing our critical infrastructure to cybersecurity risks, foreign intelligence threats, and supply chain vulnerabilities cannot be understated, in my opinion. Outside of our hemisphere, China casts a wide geostrategic footprint of malign influence in other critical choke points, including a multitude of Chinese-financed, developed, or managed ports across Africa. These ambitions provide access to critical minerals, naval launch pads, and consequential state-owned projections. Additionally, the deep-sea port in the city of Antalya on Georgia's Black Sea coast recently granted the tender for construction to a Chinese consortium sanctioned by the U.S. in 2020 for promoting militarization in the South China Sea. The strategic location of this port in the Middle Corridor, the trade route between China and Europe, would make this a crucial project for President Xi. Unfortunately, I believe many of these projects are just another example of emerging economies lured in by China's debt trap diplomacy. To combat these efforts, the heads of relevant U.S. government agencies must work collaboratively and creatively to ensure open access and security for strategic ports and offer alternatives to PRC investments in these ports. The Strategic Ports Reporting Act helps accomplish that goal. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 1701, and I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
When President Xi started the Belt and Road Initiative at the Maritime Silk Road Initiative, Beijing embarked on a coordinated state mandate to finance, acquire, access, enhance, and build ports around the world. Today, the PRC is actively engaged in 115 port projects in at least 68 countries with more than $65 billion invested or promised. And at least 89 ports projects that have characteristics that could supply military applications. And with the largest Navy in the world, the PRC's ambitions are clear. It seeks global basin locations for an aspirational blue water Navy. Representative Huizinga's Strategic Ports Reporting Act will allow us to better track Beijing's attempt to grow its global maritime influence through its investments in foreign ports. The United States government needs ready access to all available information about the nature, extent, and intent of the PRC's involvement in port projects and maritime infrastructure around the world. And we need a strategy to drive diplomatic, development, and defense engagements to mitigate threats from the PRC's activities at critical ports. While several think tanks and research groups already map and report on PRC port activities, this bill reporting requirements can shed light on the impact of these ports on U.S. interests and national security. So it is critical that the United States government continue to monitor the nature, the extent, and the intent of the PRC's involvement in port projects and maritime infrastructure around the world and analyze the impact on U.S. strategic interest and on our partners and allies. And so I encourage all of my colleagues to join in supporting this measure, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
I will continue to reserve, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Yes, it's my honor to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Maryland, Representative Johnny Olszewski.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the ranking member and thank you to my colleague, Mr. Huizinga, for his leadership on this bipartisan and bicameral bill. I'm proud to join his efforts and co-lead on legislation that will help safeguard our ports and boost our economy. I've seen firsthand how critical our ports are to our national security, to our economic strength, and to the resilience of our supply chains. In my home state of Maryland, the Port of Baltimore is an anchor. It provides more than 15,000 direct jobs, supports another 140,000 connected jobs and services, and it's a critical gateway for commerce. It's one of the largest ports in the country for automobiles and ranks in the top 10 nationally for total cargo. The Port of Baltimore, like so many ports across the country, is an economic lifeline for our communities. Today, however, these lifelines face a growing challenge. Namely, China is aggressively expanding its influence over strategic ports around the world. China is building, buying, and controlling maritime infrastructure critical to U.S. interests. They now control or have stakes in critical ports across Europe, Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas, providing Beijing with unprecedented leverage over key maritime choke points and global trade routes. In the Western Hemisphere alone, Chinese companies have established ownership or operational control in ports spanning 7 countries, including major terminals here in the U.S. Last year, the House Select Committee on China and the House Homeland Security Committee conducted a joint investigation into the operation of ZPMC at U.S. ports. ZPMC is a Chinese state-owned company and the world's largest manufacturer of cranes. At the Port of Baltimore, the FBI discovered intelligence gathering equipment on board a vessel delivering ZPMC cranes to the Port of Baltimore. This allows China not only to advance its own economic interests, but also to potentially disrupt shipping access and gather intelligence on U.S. military movements. The Strategic Ports Reporting Act is a necessary and timely response to this threat. It's not just about commercial competition, it's about transparency, preparedness, and safeguarding our national security so we can continue to project power, protect our economy, and secure our supply chains. This is a bipartisan and common sense step to protect the American people. I urge my colleagues to support this bill and send a clear message. The U.S. will not cede control of our critical infrastructure to our adversaries. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further requests for time, and I'm prepared to close. If the other side
Gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I too am prepared, have no other speakers, and prepared to close after the gentleman does. I do want to say, though, my colleague, Mr. Olszewski, I appreciate his involvement in this in a bipartisan manner. So with that, I will continue to reserve.
Gentleman from New York.
Yield myself as much time as I may consume for the purpose of closing. Mr. Speaker, the United States needs a strategy to effectively mitigate threats from the PRC's growing maritime influence through its investments in foreign ports. The report required under this bill will shine a light on the nature, the extent, and the intent of Beijing's involvement in port projects and maritime infrastructure around the world. And it will inform efforts by the United States government to analyze the impact on these ports on U.S. interests and our national security. And I hope that all of my colleagues will join me in support of this bill. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I want to say thank you to my colleagues, Mr. Whitman on my side of the aisle, especially those on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Olszewski and Mr. Auchincloss, and my good friend, the ranking member, Mr. Meeks, for working through this. And Mr. Speaker, you know, peace through strength is a theme of the United States that we've had for a long time, and it is something that is imperative right now. And without stalwart diplomacy from the United States and its allies and economic partners, Communist China's global reach will only mature, sowing instability and insecurity, and frankly, as I talked about, some economic challenges abroad. So I appreciate the fact that the gentleman was talking a little bit about the private sector, and I welcome and appreciate their involvement in their attempts to do tracking and to analyze what is going on. But these other attempts at offering that strategy and the mapping of the critical assets lack up-to-date information oftentimes, and do not take into account the warfighter perspectives that President Trump's DOD brings, nor do they really use the lens of a U.S. national security priorities. That's why I believe, Mr. Speaker, that this legislation is so important. The Strategic Ports Reporting Act was deliberated and negotiated within the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and a bipartisan consensus on the text was reached. That's where we are today. So it remains imperative that the U.S. use all of its tools available to thwart malign Chinese influence and protect America's national security, our economic interests, and even our warfighters. That time is now, and I urge my colleagues to support this bill. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1701? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, For what purpose?
Yes,
For
Mr. Speaker, I object to the vote on the ground that a quorum is not present and make the point of order that a quorum is not present.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this motion will be postponed. The chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, a message from
Mr. Secretary.
A message from the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Secretary.
I am directed by the President of the United States to deliver to the House of Representatives a message in writing.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1263.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1263, a bill to require a strategy for bolstering engagement and cooperation between the United States, Australia, India, and Japan, and to seek to establish a Quad Inter-Parliamentary Working Group to facilitate closer cooperation on shared interests and values.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Izinga, and the gentleman from New York, Mr. Meeks, will each control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on this measure.
Without objection.
And I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of H.R. 1263, the Strengthening the Quad Act, introduced by my friend, the ranking member, Mr. Meeks, and chairwoman of the East Asia and Pacific Subcommittee, Congresswoman Young Kim. This legislation is a strategic, forward-thinking step that reinforces Congress's unwavering commitment to free, open, and a secure Indo-Pacific. At a time when the Chinese Communist Party is aggressively asserting its influence, militarizing the South China Sea, threatening Taiwan, coercing regional partners, and promoting authoritarianism, it is more critical than ever for the United States to deepen cooperation with like-minded democratic nations. The Quad, consisting of the United States, India, Japan, and Australia, is not just another diplomatic forum. It's a powerful strategic alliance built on unyielding values, respect for sovereignty, unwavering commitment to the rule of law, promotion of fair trade, and a relentless defense of democratic governance. This partnership is a force for stability and accountability in an increasingly turbulent world. The Strengthening the Quad Act takes this partnership to the next level. It empowers this relationship by ensuring regular, high-level engagement between the United States Congress and the legislatures of the Quad nations, fostering deeper collaboration and mutual understanding. We have seen the power of early engagement. On day one of President Trump's administration, Secretary Rubio convened the first-ever Quad foreign ministers meeting, demonstrating our dedication to confronting evolving geopolitical challenges alongside our democratic allies. By strengthening our partnership with the Quad, we are not just reinforcing allies in the Indo-Pacific, we are drawing a clear line in the sand, or maybe the oceans, Mr. Speaker. Democratic values and the rule of law will, and not might, shape the future of global power, not authoritarian coercion. As chairman of the South Central Asia's subcommittee, I support this legislation and reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 1263. I am the proud sponsor of this bill, the Strengthening the Quad Act, and I'm grateful to Representative Young Kim for introducing it with me, alongside Representative Berra, Heinzinger, and Kamlager-Dove. The Quad is a diplomatic dialogue that the United States has established with the governments of Japan, Australia, and India. It is a timely initiative with strong support in all 4 capitals and the support of 3 successive U.S. administrations. President Trump helped relaunch the Quad during his first term. President Biden elevated the Quad to the leaders level and operationalized it. And the second Trump administration has embraced the Quad as well. In fact, as Mr. Heinzinger has said, Secretary of State Marco Rubio's first official diplomatic meeting was with the Quad foreign ministers. The reason the Quad is so important today is very simple. Freedom and democracy in the Indo-Pacific region and around the world are currently under attack. According to Freedom House, the world has experienced 19 consecutive years of decline in global freedom. Given this global crisis, America must lead with our values and harness regional diplomacy to bring democracies together like never before, to foster cooperation and find solutions to complex challenges, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, which is one of the best tools we have to do and we work with is, in fact, the Quad. The Quad allows us to work with 3 leading Indo-Pacific democracies to showcase the heft of open markets and open societies. In the face of the PRC's authoritarian model, we must demonstrate to the region that democracies can deliver and will deliver results. On this, Republicans and Democrats agree that the Quad is an integral for a free and open Pacific. But to ensure the Quad's success and longevity, we need to identify and pursue clear objectives and deepen political and institutional support in all 4 of the capitals. This is why H.R. 1263 calls on the State Department to develop a long-term strategy for the Quad. The strategy and report to Congress will allow successive administrations to set ambitious benchmarks and to partner with Congress to meet them. My bill also establishes a Quad Inter-Parliamentary Working Group to facilitate engagement and cooperation among the legislatures of the 4 democracies. Interparliamentary engagement will expand diplomatic ties and strengthen oversight of our respective governments in order to enhance the Quad's effectiveness. It will also help to sustain political support and resources for the Quad in all 4 nations. It is simply a very important bill to further democracy in the Indo-Pacific. And so I encourage my colleagues to join in supporting this measure, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at this time, I am very pleased to yield to the gentlelady from California, the chair of the Subcommittee on East Asia and the Pacific, my good friend, Mrs. Kim, for as much time as she may consume.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Huizenga. I want to thank you for yielding, and I want to thank Ranking Member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Ranking Member Mix, also for managing this on the House floor. And I rise in strong support of H.R. 1263, the Strengthening the Quad Act. As you heard, this is a Quad among the 4 nations, United States, Japan, India, and Australia. And this is a cornerstone of our strategy to promote a free and open Indo-Pacific and counter the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, and maintain stability and the U.S. interest, what the Department of Defense has deemed the priority theater. Against the backdrop of the CCP's militarization of the South China Sea, coercive economic practices, and territorial disputes, the Quad amplifies our 4 democracies' deterrence and economic, defense, and technological cooperation. The Strengthening the Quad Act takes our alliance to a step further by creating a comprehensive Quad strategy and establishing Quad Inter-Parliamentary Working Group that reinforces America's commitment to our allies in the region. I've seen the benefit of inter-parliamentary working groups coming together, having worked on one of those in the past, and I think this is going to really bring all our interested parties together to really work on finding solutions to keep our strategic security partnership stronger. So now is the time to ramp up the Quad's collaboration on maritime security, cybersecurity, and efforts to counter disinformation to protect our allies and friends, especially in the Pacific Island nations. They are counting on us to show up. So I'm proud to co-lead this important legislation with Representative Mix, and I urge all my colleagues to support the Strengthening the Quad Act. With that, thank you, and I yield back.
And I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
I have no other individual to speak. I'm ready to close.
Gentleman from Michigan.
At this point, I have no other speakers as well, and I will continue to reserve while the gentleman closes.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a bipartisan bill, and I want to thank Representative Young Kim for her work on this bill, along with Mr. Berra, Mr. Heinzinger, and Ms. Kamlager-Dove. This bill passed the House in the last Congress and also the one before that. With authoritarianism on the rise and our Indo-Pacific allies and partners increasingly worried about the United States' commitment to their region, passing this bill now and getting it signed into law will reassure our allies that the United States will remain engaged at the highest of levels. This will help ensure that democracies in the region can continue to deliver and that we stay committed and find success in our collective endeavor to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. So I hope all of my colleagues will join me and support this bill. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the ranking member, I appreciate your work on this, as well as the work of Chairwoman Kim, Mr. Barra, Ms. Kamlager-Dove. This is what can happen when we come together and have our common interests as a nation be projected out to our allies. And I've been involved in a number of other inter-parliamentary groups, IPGs, that really have allowed this body to build and foster relationships with others. And it is those critical relationships, not just at the administrative level, but also at that legislative level, that can work through some of the challenges that occur at times with our allies. So, Mr. Speaker, let's pass Strengthening the Quad Act and send an unmistakable message. The United States stands firm with our allies, committed to peace through strength, prosperity through unity, and an unbreakable defense of democracy against authoritarian threats. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1263? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan
I would
seek
like to
recognition?
request the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. Okay.
We're going to switch committees, so it'll just be a
Okay.
quick break, but when we do, that'll be short.
Thank you.
Susan, you have that? 2201. Hold on. Sounds like Tutu will want to be next. If you can. While you read. Okay.
Ready? Okay. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 217, Chip In for Veterans Act of 2025 as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 70, H.R. 217, a bill to amend Title 38 United States Code to make permanent the pilot program authorized by the Communities Helping Invest Through Property and Improvements Needed for Veterans Act of 2016 and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Bost, and the gentleman from California, Mr. Takano, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks on H.R. 217 as amended.
Without objection.
Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 217 as amended. This bill was introduced by my good friend and colleague, Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska. This bill would reauthorize the Chip In pilot program for another 5 years while expanding it nationwide. This pilot program has enabled public-private partnerships with VA to help fund the construction of projects for healthcare facilities. It is set to expire next year. In Omaha, Nebraska, VA and local partners used this authority to build an outpatient clinic 1 year ahead of schedule and $35 million under budget. They delivered to veterans in Nebraska a modern, state-of-the-art facility. With this bill, we would move VA